very fortunate today to have 6 distinguished Yale and Stanford alumni with us. They come from business, academia, entrepreneurship, so we will not run out of perspectives tonight. Our panelists are Lin Jia, COO of Shinho Group. Welcome. Yin Professor of Pharmaceutical Sciences at Tsinghua University. Welcome. Our panelists online include Martin Ma, founder and CEO of Happy Universe. Welcome. Marshall Van Alstyne, Allen and Kelli Questrom Professor in Information Systems at Boston University. Welcome. Zhang Lu, founder and managing director of Fusion Fund and our panel moderator Peilin, partner of ORH Partners. We look forward to their insights and debates and likely disagreements, making this event a learning experience for everyone. Finally, it's my great pleasure to turn the stage over to April Hu, the chair of the Yale International Alliance.
大家好. I'm April Sander Hu, and Hu Shuangduo. I am the chair of Yale International Alliance, YIA. Our mission is to connect international Yale alumni and friends to understand each other better, to collectively learn, to make impact globally. As co-creators with Peilin Jia, we have curated a series of webinars called AI and the Global Citizen to showcase solutions on pressing world matters. As a Chinese-American Yale engineer, I am so excited to see so many of you on site in Beijing and also calling in by Zoom from all around the world. YIA, Yale International Alliance, actually would invite other Yale organizations, including Yale clubs from different cities, different countries, different continents, to collaborate together. Because this is what we're wanting to do, and I thank you for joining this hybrid program, Bridging East and West, that is actually quite timely. So right now, I encourage you all to feel curious and with awe, with the feeling perhaps how you felt when you first walked into your first class at Yale, or at your own education institution. And therefore right now, I'd hand over to Peilin, who will be moderating our panel of experts from China and America. So, and online here, there's Marshall coming from Boston. Martin, I don't know where you're calling in from. And there's also Zhang, and she's calling in from early morning from, I believe, California. So thank you very much for joining us. So over to you, Peilin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, April. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. I'm honored to be moderating this event on site here with Professor Ying and Mr. Jie, and online with Marshall, Professor Marshall van Alstyne, and Martin Ma, and Zhang from Silicon Valley. So let's now start with our first question. Can our guests please share some of your experience with us on how AI is transforming the industries you're covering, and what new technology and new business models do you see in these industries? Jie, maybe you can share the retail or manufacturing industry.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about it. Well, I've been working in the retail industry for the past decades, and covering both online and offline, and we cover both the channel side and also the brand company side. So, and I've been through what we call the AI transformation like twice already. First time is somewhere between 2015, just around that time. So computer vision is pretty hot. So that's where we have cameras, and then we use cameras to identify objects and then human beings, and also facial recognition. And then for some reason that the latest transformation comes from the AIGC, what we know about the large model and the AI agent. So in terms of AI technology, really isn't new. There isn't one technology. We are talking about a bunch of new cutting edge technology at different times. Well, for time's sake, just share some interesting stories that we, as an active practitioner of technology, tell you some interesting stories, and then I will start with my takeaway about how to adopt and apply AI technology for enterprise, mostly in retail business. I wasn't very familiar with biomed or healthcare or other industries. I'll start with my takeaway, which is there's a common mistake of using technology in general, let alone AI technology. That is, you mixed up ends with your means. And then oftentimes technology is not the end, it's the means to get you to the end. But because of a common FOMO, FOMO, fear of missing out, so a lot of the enterprise here in China rush into adopt the cutting edge technologies with the fear of, if I don't do this, if my company don't do this, then my company will be wiped out. I've seen that case like many times with myself, with my clients, with companies that we work with. And then as long as you hold that mentality, and I've never seen a successful case where you make technology or applying AI technology per se as your end, as your goal, right? But in fact, it is only a tool. It is only a means to get you to your end. You have to know what do you want as a CEO of the company. You really have to know what you want to use about this technology to get what you want. If you really don't have the application, you don't have to use it, right? So I will start out with the first funny, well, it's a real case currently happening in my own company, the latest company, which we are a FMCG company, fast-moving the consumer goods. We sell condiments, we produce vinegars, we produce soy sauce, right? So we have a manufacturing factories, and then we have sales and the marketing organizations to sell our products to place them into supermarkets, right? So it's a very typical FMCG company. And then for some reason, this AIGC, ChatGPT, and then etc. excites, and then the founder, all right. Yeah, well, see, that's where technology doesn't work, right? So, well, no, probably smart enough to know that I'm going to say something negative, so it cuts the connection. That's very smart. But so he wants to know what we can do. Well, honestly, I told him there's really not much we can in terms of using the large model and everything. But then our technology team, the head of the technology, told me that, you can't say no to boss, right? The boss wants to see, can you apply a large model to our company to make our life better? And then he ended up using a large model version of it locally, deploy in our server, and then use that as a tool to do what? To do web crawling, to do basically collecting data from the web, which you can honestly just use a web crawler to do it very efficiently, right? You just write a Python, like 10 lines of code, you could have done it, right? But then our tech team, think about, let's make an AI agent. And then we tell them, we talk to the AI agent and say, hey, I want some data from what year to what year, can you get that for me from online? And then this AI agent will say, okay, I'm going to analyze this and I'm going to get this data for you. This honestly is funny, but to me it's absurd. I mean, it is a typical example of you don't really know what you want to do, and then you just harshly push the application of the technology, which isn't the right technology. And another example was about 10 years ago. If you still remember, at that time in China, all the shopping malls went through a renovation. They install a lot of cameras in the shopping mall. The reason for that is they wanted to know how many people coming into my shopping mall, and then they do a statistic count. They wanted to know how many people go into this store and how many people go into that store, and how duration, how long they have stayed in the store. And then they asked me to help them to install that system. Many of the shopping malls, almost everyone that you know about it. And then for Wanda, and I told them, I said, why do you want this, right? I said, why do you? I said, because I was from JD.com. I worked for Jingdong before, right? So he said, well, in the online world, you guys have all the data, so all the traffic, all the UVs, we call it UVs, right? PVs and UVs and all the conversion rate, etc. Well, in offline, we need to know the same thing. We need to know that, okay, that makes sense, but then what? And then what do you want to use about it? I mean, as an owner of my store, you charge me for the service, right? And you tell me how many people come into my store. Is it because your technology that increases the visitors to my store, or is it because my location is a premium location in the mall, therefore I have all these visits, right? I mean, it's like means and ends. It's not because you apply this technology so that I have more visitors into my store. It is because I paid the premium rent on the first floor next to the entrance of the shopping mall. And because my brand, for example, I'm a Starbucks at that time, or you are some pretty good brand. That's why that I have this all this traffic coming in. But then at that times, because of digitization, right? Because Wang Jielin basically said everyone that shopping mall needs to be digitized. And then people are asking, what does that even mean, right? So that means that so we burned a lot of money. We wasted because chasing for the technology, China, my colleague, my friends, people that in this industry, we lied about everything and we wasted a lot of money. Now, there are successful applications. I will start with my own company. Yes, it's a FMCG company, but there are a lot of automation technologies that have already been adopted, like robotics, right? So yeah, robotics is a technology. Is it AI? Well, I mean, it's part of, right? But it's long being used in the industry, the robotic arms. And then we also use computer. We also install cameras in our production line to replace people to identify the defects of the products. And then computer works far better and faster than human being eyes. We used to have like for every production line, every 10 meters, we have one worker standing there and looking at the bottle to see whether or not there's a defects on the product, on the packaging, basically. So, but then yeah, that was replaced by computer, and which is a lot faster. So, and there are very successful, and HEVs, right? When we do logistics, you see in our warehouse, we do have these HEVs carrying cargoes and automatically stocking into the warehouses. All of those technologies that are actually in place have been here for decades. It's not well, honestly, it has nothing to do with the latest AI agent or large model, but it has been in place, and then that's useful because you have a goal. You wanted to do something. You want to realize something to improve your efficiency, and then you look for the right technology to apply and then get what you want. So that's what I meant by you have to meet up your ends with your means. You can't fix you can't not revert it around the other way. So I'll just pretty much stop here, and then there are a lot of stories to tell, but and we are more excited to hear more stories from other panelists. Thank you very much.
Professor Yin, would you share some of your perspectives?
Sure. Thank you very much, Peilin. So hello, everyone. My name is Han Hubert Yin. I go by Hubert. Actually, Hubert is really my middle name. I adopt that when I was naturalized as a U.S. citizen. So actually, like when I was in the U.S., people always laugh at me. Like, Hubert, that sounds like someone from the 60s or something. Like, it's a long story anyway. But I want to thank Helen again, our excellent, fearless leader, the president of Yale Beijing. Yale is always something like really has this sweet spot in my heart. So just like Dr. Lin, I went to New Haven also back in '99. I think that sometimes like maybe many of you guys sitting in this room were still not born yet. So, but anyway, before that, I graduated from Peking University. We call it Peking University, and then after Yale, I went to Philadelphia for postdoc training at UPenn Medical School. And then after teaching 12 years at University of Colorado Boulder, I moved to Tsinghua. That is a no-no, usually like for Peking alumnus. So my friend actually always asked me like, how come you went to Tsinghua? I always told them because Tsinghua is still like about like a street away from the world-class university. So actually, like before this panel, I was like, Peilin and I would talk about, because she has this thing to move to Harvard after Yale. That is something we can't accept. Yeah. But anyway, today's theme is about AI. I would just actually like share with you some like this AI moment, because everyone sitting in this room, I think, would have some of this thing touch, as Dr. Lin just mentioned. I like to play Go. Like many of you guys like to play the game Go, right? So this Lee Sedol, I mean, as you guys know, used to be the best Go player, a Korean player in the world. So back in 2016, back then I still live in Boulder, Colorado. I heard actually there's this new AI thing called AlphaGo. I mean, they will actually have this 5-game thing, like 5-set game with Lee, and the winner is going to take away with $1 million. So I was, that's still like a deep, like late night in the US. I got up like every time to watch the game. And then this is like have the best player to the illustrators to talk about actually like I still very much actually this is a very like vivid memory. At the beginning, they were like, let's see how how Lee is going to basically just hammer this AI game. There's no way AI can challenge a human with the most sophisticated game human ever invented, which is Go, right? That's even compared to chess, like for you guys who don't play Go, even compared to chess, Go is a game with like 19 by 19, and only you have like two, like two sets of like those things, stones, I think what they call it, black and white. So it's really like the like astronomical like possibility for those, and the people think computer, even Deep Blue beat the chess champion back in '97. The Go is like really like the last thing, like the human just hold our honor. So, but like so in the beginning they have this thing, but actually like so they have this optimism until like the middle of the first game. They were like the illustrator like, let's just count the number, how much Lee is ahead of this AI. And then to their surprise, and almost to everybody's surprise, really Lee already like left or behind the AI. So he lost the first game, and then he lost the second game. He lost the third game. So I think actually at that moment, it really struck me really badly. Like it's the most like I think like the if you like the enemy, if you like really like fight with someone, the most terrible thing is that you don't even understand his move, because he's so much better. He's just actually just overwhelmed you. So at that moment, I just feel really the AI arrow really came. Of course, Lee won the fourth game, and that became the only game a human player ever won against AI. So of course, the people who developed AlphaGo, DeepMind, they actually took the Nobel Prize in chemistry last year. Also because besides AlphaGo, they developed AlphaFold, predicting the protein folding problem, which is also a difficult one. Because we all use like proteins, and for proteins, they also take more than the time of the universe would actually form to calculate all of the possibility. But protein can fold to one structure to carry out all of the biological function. And AlphaFold seems to solve problem. So now, as Peilin mentioned, I'm a professor of pharmaceutical science at Tsinghua. So I work in the field of biotechnology and pharmaceutical industry. From 2020, I started serving as an advisor for SoftBanks. And that is the VC actually has quite much impact in many different areas. Actually, Catherine here, she's a postdoc in my lab, and she actually was my co-worker. Actually, we work with the SoftBank team with Eric Chen. Maybe you guys know him as the leader for SoftBanks. So as you guys know, SoftBanks invested Alibaba back in, 20 years ago, something like that. So 2020, they started actually pick the AI for drug. Now people talk about AI plus, AI for everything. So back 2020, they actually get into the AI healthcare, AI drug development area. So the first company we invested is Crystal Pie. How many people knows Crystal Pie? So that Crystal, no, that is a drug company. That's actually a company went public last year. The first one in Hong Kong, actually, according to the 18C rule, the rule said. So, but this is actually pretty crazy. So back in 2020, SoftBank invested, I see that one is 370 million US dollars. That's actually a lot of money. But the company was founded by 3 physics postdocs leaving. I think they left MIT back in 2015, and then they actually the first round, what I call angel round. So was actually from Tencent also. So 2020 they actually raised 370 million from SoftBank and others. But what is amazing, because actually I wrote the technical report, and then actually how do you say that? Price Waters, Price Waters Cooper, PCW wrote this financial report. Over 5 years, not actually the annual income, the accumulated income over 5 years is 50 million RMB. 50 million RMB supporting over 3 billion value. So at that moment, I was like, so this is a different story. We came to a different time, because in the drug industry, we call we got those preclinical phase 1, 2, 3, the clinical trials. After clinical phase 2, we call that late stage. It has started having some real world value. But I feel that is the moment we don't really use the old rules to evaluate AI drug company anymore. So Crystal Pie have so much money. They actually at some point they have over $1 million US cash in hand. They became even a VC themselves to buy other companies. So as you remember, actually, I'm not sure if how many of you guys know a company, a VC called DST. That is also a famous one. Actually, they invested Facebook at early time. So I remember actually Catherine and I, we went to meet their partners, Michael Chen, actually in Beijing, Qihao. So they have actually a Michelin 3-star restaurant, if you don't know that place. So after because I wrote the technical report for Crystal Pie and working for SoftBank, we look over all of these AI drug companies in China and also overseas. So actually a lot of people came to talk to me. So we talked with them overnight. I'm not overnight, over 3 years. At the end of this conversation, Michael was like, hey, Hubert, do you think with AI, the drug companies, we came to a paradigm shifting moment? So I was thinking about that. That sort of makes sense. Really, with AI, drug development is different from the past, years, decades, even centuries. So we really don't use the same evaluation rules as before. But of course, I want to mention, people talk about AI all the time, but really like into the VC field after 2022, we really came to we call this a freezing period. So SoftBank and other VCs stop investing AI drug companies anymore. Because I think that the key here is we don't figure a way to make money. I think that's also a challenge, at least in my area, in healthcare and biomedical and biotechnology, still some like great challenge we're facing. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Professor Yun. Our online guests, Martin and Ms. Lu Zhang, and Professor Van Alstyne, do you have any perspectives that you can share with us?
Maybe I can get started quickly. Hello, everyone. So I'm glad to see so many friends here, including some other board members from Yale Graduate School Alumni Association. Welcome. We are very happy to work with Helen, and haven't seen you a long time, Peilin. So to have this AI series, I think it's right on time because we, as a practitioner in this industry, I really see many new applications, many new requirements on applying AI in their business. So just a brief introduction about myself. I went to Yale in 2001. Before that, I got my bachelor degree in computer science from Tsinghua University. So I spent 6 years getting my PhD at Yale. So I'm now a board member of Yale Graduate School Alumni Association, which we help to coordinate many events like this to connect all the alumni. So we many of the speakers like Lin Jia and Professor Yin, we met a lot offline. So we know each other quite well. For myself, I first became a consultant after my PhD with the Boston Consulting Group, helping many people expanding their business globally. And after that, I was a VC for a few years in Beijing. So after that, I started my own company, which is called Happy Universe. We started by helping many gaming companies, game developers and app developers from China to grow their business globally. That was involved with a lot of efforts like online marketing and product modification, user study, localization. After that, we see many skills we developed can help larger companies, especially when they want to expand globally or locally in China. So, but they don't have enough insight on their user behavior and on the application design part. So we started helping many bigger companies on their digitalization, we call it, which means they want to digitize their process in their business, either in retail, sometimes in pharmaceutical, so even in internet business. So they want to make their business more digitized. So that's something we have been doing for 5 years, and we see many new demand recently on AI because a few biggest application scenario I see was like AI GC related stuff. So that can enhance their productivity a lot. For example, in the gaming industry, we used to have about 30 people in our game art team to design all the original graphics, 3D model, animation, special effects. You see many cool stuff in games. Maybe you guys can guess how many people we have in that team. So it's a big change. So right now we only have 3. So we were able to leverage the AI tools to save about 80 to 90% of the work. And the reason for that is many people become freelancer as well. So we actually need to do the coordination work in-house. We actually outsource many works to the freelancer, and they actually can do things much quicker with AI tools and at a much lower price. So our total cost decreased about I would say 70%. So like we don't keep so many employees, and also we outsource the work, so the total cost saved more than half. So that's a change we have seen in the gaming industry. And in some other industries, I see different similar requirement as well on improving the productivities. So I think we can chat more about that later, but that's what's happening in my industry. So thank you.
Oh, interesting, Martin. Just to echo your point on the video and graphics production related work, I recently met an advertising company. They were able to use AI to generate advertising videos, and it's amazing animation, and they are reducing the cost by 90%.
Yes.
They told me. So it's quite a tremendous cost saving there. Okay, Ms. Lu Zhang, are you online? Can you share some of your insights from Silicon Valley? I know it's very early in your time zone.
Yeah, happy to. So I'm Lu. I'm the founder managing partner of Fusion Fund. Actually, I started investing in AI almost 10 years ago, since 2015. Since we actually initially launched the fund. Even before that, I was initial material scientist at Stanford, later become an entrepreneur. And for the company I built myself, we're using AI for healthcare. So as some other panelists mentioned, AI being in the industry for a long time. But now finally, it's a great market timing that there's a huge adoption across the industry with AI to focus on both business automation, which is the industry automation we've been talking about, and also business optimization, which is really treating AI not only as a tool, but also the future of the digital labor, AI labor, be able to expand outside the tech industry, but into the service industry, into like healthcare, insurance, financial, logistics, even space tech, all this industry be able to benefit from the AI-powered business optimization opportunity. So in the past 10 years, we invested so many companies, and the opportunity is really rising very, very fast. I would say when we talk about AI, there are always the three things that really matters. One is the compute, second is the data, and also the last thing is really just the application use cases. Another good thing is the amount of the data we have available for AI application is quite fascinating. Partially also due to the COVID, that lots of industry traditional sector, they have to adopt a digital tool, which collecting tons of industry data used for AI training. And across the industry, I'm personally really passionate about AI in healthcare. Lots of people probably didn't know that in human society, over 30% of the data we have are actually healthcare related, but we only leverage less than 5% of the data to help us with different type of innovation. Now with AI-enabled opportunity, we are seeing digital diagnostic, digital therapeutics, digital life science solution for cancer, heart disease, and mental disease. So it's a prime time for AI in healthcare right now. And also besides that, there's other industry people probably more familiar, like insurance industry, financial industry, with huge amount of high quality data. Although there's a regulation compliance issue, but adoption of the federated learning and the data encryption AI governance technology make it possible to utilize AI. And also one industry I really want to highlight is the space industry, space tech. And now since we have much lower launching costs, and every satellite you can see that the edge devices be able to collect in lots of high quality data, which is the space data and satellite data for AI training. So that's also the opportunity to build up application there. And since we talk about a lot about data, another thing is really about the discussion between the model size, the large model, vertical small model. Of course, you guys heard a lot of amazing launches from the major player like Google Gemini, like Anthropic, Cloud, and also OpenAI, ChatGPT-5. But besides the large model, we also see a rising of the small vertical model for industry application, and which does not necessarily require lots of compute or energy. The cost could be really cheap, and also model size could be as small as less than 1 billion tokens. So we can deploy on the local device and in the local network, which can really provide better security and also compliance requirement for AI adoption. And we're also seeing lots of open source community it's doing AI innovation. That's kind of changing the traditional company-driven AI innovation to community-driven AI innovation. So yeah, there's lots of things happening right now, and we're also seeing more active, integration of the AI tech through merge acquisition. This year alone, we had 5 exits already. 2 companies was acquired by NVIDIA, 1 was acquired by Apple. There's also the other 2 acquired by public listed company. That's also indication of how fast the industry are adopting AI right now. And we're seeing, even faster collaboration between startup and the large corporate. One of our company focused on AI infrastructure. They got a pretty sizable contract from actually JP Morgan Chase within a couple of weeks. Typically you only expect the banking industry be able to finalize such a sizable check with a startup within, even within 3 months. Now we're talking about weeks. So it's a great time. It's definitely an amazing opportunity ahead of us in terms of adopting AI. And also, as I said, eventually it's not only just a tool we need to use, but also it's empower the future of the digital labor. And us as a leader also potentially need to manage both human labor and the digital AI labor. That's also some interesting opportunity and also challenge for us to consider how to evolve from there. I'll pause here and happy to share more.
Oh, thank you, Lu. Just to add some point on interesting AI applications. Last year, we invested in an interesting startup. They produced an app powered by AI that enables pet owners to empathize better with their pets. So it's basically a vertical model on dog behavior and dog language. And initially, we thought it's interesting because people are increasingly adopting pets as their family member. So we think it will be an interesting tool for pet users, and perhaps we can build e-commerce on top of that. But now we find that a lot of hardware companies are very interested in technology because a lot of hardware, like cars, they want to have more pet-friendly features built in their car systems. So large car manufacturers are actually talking with the company about building their system into their in-car system. And more recently, even robot companies are approaching the company to talk about collaborating on, pet care features. So perhaps in future, we can have robots feed your pets at home and perhaps walk your dogs. So these are all very interesting applications that we never thought about initially, but kind of came up from the convergence of different AI and robotics, different kind of new technologies. So that's quite interesting. Professor Van Alstyne, can you also share some of your experience from Boston?
Sure, I'm delighted to. I got to say, here I am from the belly of the beast, adjacent to Harvard. So almost entered a little bit of enemy territory. But we started in computer science at Yale. In fact, we were looking at artificial intelligence technology using very different methods at the time. There's logical inferencing, and it's quite fascinating that the AI techniques now for the neural network technologies are quite different than those that were used a while ago. And these are extraordinarily different. Many of you may know that some of the foundational models are built on technology that's quite recent, based on some insights from 2017 with a paper put out by Google. It's really quite interesting. But let me give you a couple of different examples. Academia is one area that's transforming dramatically. I think everyone anticipates content creation, and there's always some concern for the plagiarism detection or producing someone else, work that's not your own, things of that sort. But I think some of the bigger transformations are actually in content creation to tailor content, to generate whole new content, courses, to tailor to folks' interests. it's interesting that there's academic evidence that folks that use AI may work less hard, but if you put them in competition, then in fact, you might actually get them to work harder. So maybe you can actually design some incentive systems to get better results out of it. Another area that's quite interesting, colleagues at Siemens are actually looking at industrial uses of AI. Many of the ones that we talk about here have been consumer applications or, solving the game of Go or things of that sort. Most of the training sets are done in modalities such as text, audio, video. And there are huge opportunities additionally in the industrial area for engineering, for grasping, for robotics, for design under constraints for building construction. And I think some of those are interesting new opportunities that have not been as well explored. So again, as an academic, we kind of study different other areas. Let me give you facts or data from other research on impacts of AI. Give you a few examples. Call center workers that have adopted it become 14% more productive in terms of projects solved or in terms of satisfaction and turnover reduces. But it's fascinating that the novices increase productivity at 34% and the experts almost not at all. So it's quite interesting that there's a differential impact in the productivity, and the techniques of the best folks are being ported over to the least skilled folks. The learning curve falls from about 10 months to about 3 months in making the productivity gains. One fascinating element is that you'll need to redesign your reward systems to make that happen, because the experts don't want to be displaced or have their expertise taken away in order that others can simply produce at the same level. The Waymo self-driving car by Google experiences 79% fewer injuries per kilometer than human drivers. So there's some big impact in that domain. Another fascinating experiment showed that large language model voice recruiter, where you're using it to actually hire people, generated 12% more offers, 18% more starts, and 17% higher retention a month after the job had been hired. So there's actually some big impacts there. Another one, there's a fascinating data. Someone looked at the searches for companies using the term artificial intelligence in their employment and correlated that with state hiring and state level gross domestic product. Fascinatingly, in the month following bursts in activity and searches for AI and hiring, the GDP in those states fell by 0.01% for a month, and then a year later grew by 0.36%. So the impact seemed to have a lag over time. So there's actually a big impact, but it happens much later. And then I attended a conference there in Beijing only this past summer, and there's some wonderful data presented by Kevin Dai, who's CEO of Tongdao Lipin Group there in China. So let me just share one or two data points from that I thought were fascinating. He's suggesting that, and they run a job recruiting site, that 220 million jobs in China will use AI. 78% of firms already using it. There's a sharp decline in entry-level work, and yet a huge surge in AI and senior-level work. And also, new job requirements are kind of different than some of the older job requirements. They're seeing increased requests for an aesthetic sense, being self-driven, being a deep thinker, fast, open-minded learner, and of course, artificial intelligence proficiency. So all of those are kind of interesting new skills. One other thing that you'd asked about was the business models. And I want to hear a little bit more about that, because most of my own expertise is really on platform business models. As a matter of fact, we have a book on platform business models and how those operate. So just to share a few thoughts on the artificial intelligence business models, it's interesting that some of the breakthroughs have initially been made by startups such as OpenAI, but the vast majority of pressure has come from these big platform companies. In the United States, of course, it's Google, Microsoft, Apple, and others. They're the ones with the massive amounts of data that are possibly used for training sets. It's also the case that they're usually typically funding those models either through venture capital investments or through subscriptions. Some other things I think are going to be coming down the pike, and there's reason to believe that you've got feedback where you've got usage generating data which generates usage, creating massive industry concentration. If you doubt that, you should think of the salaries that are being offered for the top AI scientists. In moment, the competition is so fierce in the United States. I imagine it's similar in China, but the competition for AI top programmers is so fierce. Packages of tens of millions of dollars for signing bonuses are being offered, which is just extraordinary. There's an anticipation of huge gains, which kind of forecasts industry concentration. And let me give you one last thought, just based on some research that we did, and we can kind of project it going forward. So I don't know if I'll be able to share one screen on your behalf. Let's see if this works. I don't even know if sharing was enabled here. Yep, that seems as though it was. So I'm going to try share one slide. We did some work which actually looked at APIs, or application programming interfaces. One of the things that we found fascinatingly is that firms that opened APIs grew in market cap 4% within 2 years and 36% within 16 years. Well, what happened? They became the center of a connected social network of information flows. It's almost like social networks where you become a power broker, the more contacts and the bigger the network that you have. What's fascinating is that you can anticipate this exact same phenomenon will happen among AI firms. There's a new model context protocol, or agent-to-agent protocol. And to the extent that others are going to be using your individual resources and you can program them around them, you too may be a nexus of hiring or a nexus of interactions for data and for power if you can invest in those same kinds of things. So again, this is just looking backwards at APIs and projecting forwards to this next generation of technology as good places to invest. So you'd ask for just some background and perhaps some business models. So I'll stop there and see what else folks would like to hear about.
Great. Thanks for sharing. That's very, very interesting statistics. We have talked about, successful and new models of AI adoption. And are there also bad cases of using AI? I don't know if any of you have any insights on that. Maybe Jie can start with some of your experience on failed cases of AI adoption in traditional industries.
Well, there are more failures than success, obviously. Without mentioning the name, but I can talk about one robotics installation failure, one of the logistic warehouses before. There are not many logistic warehouses using robotics, so you probably guessed who. But anyway, that's back about that's actually 2015, about 10 years ago. The AGVs are started with Amazon first of all. Amazon uses a lot of AGVs to move around goods. So in China, there are companies producing AGVs at that time and then provided to this client to use in their automation picking lines in the warehouse. Now, the failure was the design of the automatic picking line is designed to have a maximum capacity of, I can't remember exact number, but something around 100,000 packages per hour. That's the picking line. That's another maximum capacity was designed. And then before the robotics was installed, we use human beings, right? We have people at different exits along the picking line. So when the package was sorted over to your station, and then we have people we make predictions. We say, okay, this station probably needs 2 people. That station probably needs 5 people, depending on the destination, right? So it works fine. It works that when the automation line was installed, and then the speeds pick up, and then all you need to do is adding more people at the station to match up the production line, the sorting line. But then when the AGV was installed, the speed of the AGV is usually like 1 meter per second. That's pretty fast already. Otherwise, you can't go too fast indoor, right? For the AGVs running around in your warehouse. Then the disaster happened. That is, the maximum capacity of this automatic sorting line reduces to something like 5,000 packages an hour, because the robotics, the AGVs are just not fast enough to pick up the goods coming from the sorting line and ship it over to the warehouse. So that was a huge waste. Actually, then today there's a smarter way to do it today, because today people invented, well, first of all, AGV technologies has become more automatic and carry more weights. So instead of carrying 1 package, the AGV nowadays, they carry the whole stack, right? So there's a whole stack of like 10 layers, and then you probably have more than 1,000 packages over in 1 stack, and then you shovel the whole stack into the warehouse spaces instead of shoveling 1 package over. So, but then back 10 years ago, when it's the first adopter, right? So, that was a huge failure, and then I know another concrete example which I did myself. I was doing another startup about 10 years ago. Do this unattended convenience store, followed by we follow Amazon Go, right? Amazon Go has this fancy convenience store with all the cameras installed in the store, and then so I have no people actually on duty. It's all camera picks up who enters the store, picks up what, and then check out automatically. It was all fun, but then. The first store I opened was near Hongqiao Airport. Back then, that area is like desert. I mean, today you go there, you have all these buildings and whatsoever, but 10 years ago, it's almost desert. So you have this, there are more workers there, construction workers there than the office, white collar, right? So one day, then all of a sudden, one day I found there's a abnormal data, sales data coming out of the store at one time for 15 minutes during lunchtime. That is the shelf. I have a sensors under the shelf. So the shelf told me there are a lot of products are taken away from the shelf because the weights, right? The weights change. But then there's no checkout. So, and then what I realized later was the computer, at that time when we do computer vision, people face recognition and then gesture recognition. These construction workers, they came in, like a dozen of them came in after a shift. They all wear the same uniform, right? And they all wear the safety hazmat. So when the first person scanned his face coming in, the second person coming in, when these dozen people come into my store, the algorithm just doesn't work. I mean, it all looks the same. So these people grab a lot of food from off my shelf, and then when they check out, and then the computers couldn't know which one to charge to. So that's what really happened. But then I call it a failure. The reason is because we thought at that time, as the technology is good enough to, or even to perfect, not perfect, but good enough to do business. But the mistake we made was, it might be okay in other cases when you have 80% accuracy. But in retail, I mean, the margin of a typical retail convenience store is like net margin is like 5%, right? When you have this 20% error, and sometimes you charge people more, right? Sometimes you charge more and sometimes you charge less. But with that variation, so that technology at that time, even today though, by the way, is just not suitable for this particular application where you need precision. But for other applications where we think, for example, when we have all these cameras in the airport monitoring abnormal behaviors and counting traffic, etc., that you don't need 100% accuracy, right? I mean, you only need to know a ballpark of how many people are walking through this camera at this time, blah, blah. That is okay. But unfortunately, 8 years ago, we were bold enough and naive enough to trust that that works. And then I will tell you what's the solution now. Solution is not a artificial intelligence, it's a human intelligence. So they have still cameras in the store, but they have this human representative sitting somewhere in India, maybe, I don't know. And then she or he watches the camera, right? So Big Daddy is watching, and then he sees this person picks up this water and then charges them much. But don't laugh. But that's a innovative business model, right? Because when you have a physical store, once people can only stay in this store and can only serve for this store, right? But this model, a person sits behind the desk looking at, he can look at 20 cameras simultaneously. So he can actually service 20 different stores at one time. So that's actually pretty smart. So, and nowadays there are still applications, and I would say pretty successful applications of unattended convenience store models in China, especially in the southern part in Guangdong. And then they're actually making money. And then they're actually using technologies with the help of AI. AI helps to give you one result, but then the human being is the final judge to say, okay, whether or not I used the recommended solution or not. And then at this time, when you have 80% accuracy, that's good enough. It filters 80% of the orders, right? And then the person sitting behind the desk looking at the cameras only need to go through like 20% of the orders. And that's a pretty remarkable adoption. So I will stop here.
Okay, that's an amazing example. So you can use AI, but you cannot completely trust AI or rely on AI, and you still need some human intervention. Our online guest, Ms. Lu Zhang, maybe can you give us some closing remarks as you have to leave early?
I think Zhang Lu, she's left already. She has a flight to catch, but maybe I'll just add 2 comments about her role in joining the panel. She is a female. She actually one of the very first women investor in Silicon Valley, and she is also and I think with that viewpoint, I just wanted to particularly highlight the need for more women to be involved in what is right now more male-dominated industry of not only in AI but also in the VC field. Also, Zhang Lu has also continuously traveled in bringing technologies, interesting projects from Silicon Valley also to Asia. And in fact, I've seen her, I'm based in Singapore, and I also wanted to highlight what I see is greater bridging of the East and the West, and hopefully beyond sensitive, anything sensitive industries. And I do think AI has accelerated some of the discussions and collaboration. So overall, I'm optimistic, and I know Lu, she agrees with this about the opportunities and excitement for in AI, and also so encourage people to be more open to share and explore new markets, a new application beyond national borders. So anyway, just wanted to give that comment on behalf of Lu.
Martin and Marshall, would you like to add some more closing remarks?
Well, I was thinking more in the failure modes from your last question. I had 2 or 3 examples that might be interesting. First, I would simply comment, it's been a long-standing information technology practice that indeed you really do need, I've emphasized the point that was made earlier, have a strategy. Don't just adopt a technology without a goal in mind. Have a strategy and apply it to that. But let me give you 2 examples where if you don't think about the longer term, you might actually get some very different results, whether this is the human labor level or at the firm level. So often folks think, well, what about job safety with respect to artificial intelligence? We had that interesting example where it increases the productivity of call center workers 14% or 34%. The rubric had sometimes been, you may not be replaced by AI, but you may be replaced by someone using AI. Well, that may or may not be true. You have to look at the long-term trends in that. If you go back to some of the data from Kevin Dye, the call center jobs are disappearing at an extraordinary rate. So simply the use of AI alone will not protect those jobs. I have a couple of recommendations, maybe in some of the other remarks on what you might want to do going forward. If you wanted to ask later about, looking for ways to identify future opportunities or what things are happening, there may be some things to follow up. There's another one also on decision rights. Let me give you a fascinating example. Consider 3 different cases from radiology in the identification and accurate diagnosis of disease based on chest X-rays. Consider 3 cases. Expert doctors diagnosing by themselves, artificial intelligence diagnosing by itself, and doctors plus AI diagnosing together. Which of those 3 cases do you think was most accurate? Well, by a show of hands, I don't know. How many of you think the doctors alone were the most accurate? I'm not seeing any hands on that one. All right. How many? Oh, one. Okay, one in there. How many of you think that the AI alone was the most accurate? I know. Oh, one there. All right. And how many of you think the doctors plus the AI were the most accurate? A majority of hands. The statistics were fascinating. In fact, the doctors were 74% accurate. The doctors plus AI were 76% accurate, and the AI by itself, 92% accurate. It was more accurate on its own than it was with the doctors because they were not willing to give up their prior biases. They weren't willing to accept that perhaps this technology, by looking across millions of cases that they themselves wouldn't have had time to do and learn from each of them, could actually be more accurate than they themselves. This raises an organizational design question. When will you cede decision rights, and under what terms will you cede decision rights to an AI and pattern recognition for important cases? It also then raises the question, if you do cede decision rights, who's liable? Is it the programmer? Is it the party using the AI, or is it the party acting on that decision? Those are going to be some longer term issues that may be identifying failure modes in the long run that I think absolutely need to be thought through more carefully. Well, I'll stop there. If folks want some questions on ideas of what to do going forward, I'm happy to go into some of those as well. But let's take some questions from the audience.
Okay, Martin, would you add some more remarks on this issue or other issue?
Yeah, I think I just keep it very short because I think many audience want to ask questions. So a common mistake I see many business has today is that when they buy this, they made huge investment on AI, especially after DeepSeek. They think, okay, we need to own this, so let's build this with hardware and software and open source together, so that we have AI in our company. I think inspired by Professor Alstyn's graph, I saw a better approach is to use the API from service providers instead of building everything in-house, because the whole industry is moving really rapidly. So in order to enjoy the benefit of this whole improvement from the latest model, so you don't want to build everything in-house unless you have a very security concerns for your data, for anything, but you don't want to make a huge investment just to buy hardware, because many businesses I see today, they did this in March this year, And in June, they realized, okay, their machine is already out of date, and plus they don't have enough people to optimize it. They don't have a very good application scenario. So basically, it's a wasted investment. So I think that's a common mistake I see today in business applying AI. So just keep in mind, API is still a better approach to leverage.
So, well, actually, I really like what Marshall just mentioned about this diagnosis accuracy thing. It's definitely really pretty mind blowing. So it's actually interesting. So I went to some MD defense in a medical school, local medical school recently. To my surprise, when this school, this medical students, by the way, Catherine is also MD PhD also. So when this potential physician chose department these days, because they do rotations, right? They do rotations with different departments, and then when they chose the department to to work, really one of the most influential factors these days is how soon his or her job is going to be replaced by AI. I think that's really what Marshall mentioned. If I work on diagnosis, the AI can do much better. If with my input, it only makes the decision even worse. Really, what do you feel? So I guess coming back to Peilin's question, I wouldn't really call it failure. Failure is maybe a little harsh to the ear. But really the question, another different perspective is what really AI is good at, or not that good at, or maybe bad at doing something. So coming back to my stories, I talk about back in 2020, 2021, in the VC market for biotechnology at least, AI for drug development is really hot. But even SoftBank, they withdrew from that area, that direction around 2-3 years ago. Really again, I wouldn't call them failure, but many of these companies we look at, target companies we look at back in 2022, they already disappeared already. So I feel one of these things, when we talk, because today we talk about the AI-enabled industrial revolution, whatever. So really who is going to be behind the wheel? Who is going to be in the driver's seat for this? I feel really the data really matters, because those many companies, Catherine and I, we look at the AI drug companies. The difference, I mean, they all use like Marshall mentioned, the neural network, transformer framework, the technology fundamentals are pretty much the same. But really, who owns the most data for training really matters a lot, because a lot of these companies for example, they predict the drug, how this drug would work from the clinical trials. But what data we use to train this model, we really don't have because even for this investment cycle for clinical phase, the average for new drug is 10 years, $10 billion input, and numerous candidates you came with one new drug. So we even don't really complete one circle in. So for that, this is different from AlphaGo. Remember we talked about the Go game, right? Why AI is so good at playing Go? Because after this move, eventually you're going to win or lose the game. That is the definite, deterministic, almost outcome with which you can train the model perfectly. You do not have such thing for clinical application, at least for my business, for my disciplines. That's still the case. I think really to us to think about who owns the critical data, it's going to matter so much. Just one thing after I heard from Marshall's comments.
I'm just going to jump in because it's many of the people from overseas are using into the morning time, and I know it's also maybe late for those in Beijing or Asia. But I just because I had Helen and I had opened the webinar about bridging the East and West. So I really just wanted to ask each panelist to just say in one sentence, how do you think in AI, with all its opportunities and challenges, how would you think that this could be a bridge between particularly China and America, but East and West, and to give us an optimistic and constructive comment about bridging, as we all are here together. There's actually altogether 90 of us online and in person, which is an amazing gathering from around the world. So I just would like to take advantage of this time for each panelist to say one line again. How do you think the East and the West can cooperate for AI? Thank you.
Okay, Professor Yin.
I'll get started.
Start.
We have more in common than being different. With AI, I feel we can work together in a much better way.
That's great. And Jie?
Well, I think at least for the next 10 years, I can't say for too long, but for the next 10 years, China has the application and data, and the US has the technology. So I think that'll be great.
I think there's a lot China and the US can work together on using and advancing AI. And then with the manufacturing capability and supply chain in China, and AGI and large language model development in the US, perhaps we can bridge the two to make AI more effective and more applicable in real world.
Yeah, just very brief from my side. So artificial intelligence doesn't differentiate countries. It's shared by all human beings. So we have to collaborate.
So I like that. So I would pose that as a question. The first one is, in the United States, can we replace our leadership with AI? I'm very frustrated with our current leadership. Perhaps that would be an interesting, better solution. But the real answer, I think, is one I think is fairly interesting and relates to one of the other questions asked. I think it was Karen Chow. I actually think AI ethics is one of the most important things where we have a shared interest. And I think Eastern and Western views on AI ethics are going to be essential and need to be derived from first principles and added to these AI systems. The reason I think this is so important is actually pretty simple. We are on the verge of AI systems that are able to design themselves. When that happens, any constraint that we seek to put into an AI can be designed out by an AI in its next generation. So hard-coded constraints aren't going to work. So how do we get them to exercise self-control? It's going to be ethics, but that's going to have to be derived by first principles. So I would argue that one of the best things that we could do is to collaborate around ethics. And I think we would all win if we can do that.
That's a great point, especially on the eve of realization of AGI. And I think currently people are predicting faster and faster, realization, and that's kind of so. If no other questions, then we'll conclude this event. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and hope we can see you again at our next event. Thank you.
And just to say, so as I say, we're doing AI for the global citizen, and the future topics may be about sustainability and 生态文明, also in the arts and education. And so we welcome all members around the world to join on pressing matters using AI to improve for a better world. Thank you.